Thanks, Dennis. Yesterday, President Donald J. Trump's historic victory was solidified, marking the dawn of a new golden age for America. The time is now to restore our strength, rebuild our prosperity, and reassert true leadership in our nation. With just 13 days until President Trump returns to the White House, our House majority is acting swiftly to advance important legislation that Joe Biden and the Democrats blatantly ignored, the Lake and Riley Act. With Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and the party of lawlessness out of the way, the radical left's mission to enable criminal illegal aliens, yet people keep writing undocumented whatever, criminal illegal aliens at the expense of law-abiding Americans, it's no longer going to be tolerated. The tragic and preventable murder of Lake and Riley serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of failed leadership. But thankfully, voters sent a clear message on November 5th. The American people elected a Republican trifecta to put a stop to the failed Biden-Harris policies that rolled out the red carpet for illegal immigrants, criminal illegal immigrants, and put Americans in harm's way. And guess what? That's exactly what we're going to do. The Lake and Riley Act is a direct step toward ensuring that criminal illegal aliens are swiftly and permanently removed from our communities and our country. This bill is more than just a piece of legislation. It's a return to common sense American values. And under President Trump's leadership, there will be a lot more where that came from as we restore the rule of law and put Americans first again. And with that, I turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip.
As a former hockey player and a coach, I've seen firsthand the powerful impact that sports can have, especially on young people. It's not just about the game or the trophies, although those are nice. It's about the lessons you learn along the way, discipline, the value of hard work and working together as a team, and the importance of setting a goal and seeing it through. But now, unfortunately, that space is being undermined. We've watched the radical left take what was once a fair and clear playing field for female athletes and turn it into a political minefield. What should be an opportunity for young women to thrive and compete has been clouded by an agenda that prioritized so-called inclusion over fairness. Rather than standing firm for what's right and ensuring young women have the opportunity to succeed on their own merit, Democrats have caved to an ideology that simply denies common sense. What has been the result? Repeated cases of female athletes being exploited in their locker rooms, robbed of scholarship opportunities, or injured playing the sport they love, all because Democrats would rather cave to the radical activists in their party than stand up for the women they claim to champion. Last Congress, 203 House Democrats voted against the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. And while the bill passed the House, it ultimately died on Chuck Schumer's desk, where it's been collecting dust ever since. But on November 5th, voters elected a Republican House, Republican Senate, and a Republican president. And in doing so, they delivered a mandate loud and clear. The time for the left's lunacy is over. The time for common sense is now. Our Republican majority doesn't take that mandate lightly, which is why in the first 100 days of the Republican trifecta, we are working to deliver on our promise to keep biological men out of women's sports. I'm grateful for Congressman Stubbe's leadership on this issue, and I look forward to seeing the bill pass the House and ultimately the Senate and be signed into law by President Trump. The only real question is, which side of history do Democrats want to be on? And with that, I turn it over to our majority leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip.
I think our conference chair led off with this: promises made and promises kept. That has been the theme since President Trump's triumphant return to the White House on Monday. I mean, in one day, President Trump did more for the American people than Joe Biden did in 4 years. Some of us would argue more than he did for the American public in 50 years. From shutting down the woke DEI bureaucracy that poisoned every aspect of the last administration, to ending the CBP One App scam that helped facilitate the worst border invasion our country has ever seen, to rolling back policies that crippled America's energy dominance and our national security in the process, and so much more. One thing is clear: the golden age of America is upon us. And President Trump will stop at nothing to reverse the damage done by the failed Biden-Harris administration, nor should he. It's exactly what he campaigned on. And 77 million Americans gave him an overwhelming mandate to put America first. House Republicans are united and ready to work with the greatest president of our lifetimes and our Republican colleagues in the Senate to get the job done. Failure is not an option, and we're excited by the historic opportunity in front of us to make America great again. And with that, I turn it over to our Majority Leader, Steve Scalise.
Nearly 3 months ago, Americans elected a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican President with a mandate for change. Now that we're 1 week into President Trump's second term, I'm proud to report that our Republican trifecta is already delivering. From President Trump's America First executive orders to Congress's passage of common sense legislation such as the Laken Riley Act, to the restoration of American leadership on the world stage, voters can rest assured that our Republican trifecta won't just talk about solutions. We're going to get things done. On Monday, our conference had the opportunity to hear from President Trump, as Lisa just mentioned, as he laid out his priorities for the months ahead, including reconciliation. Needless to say, we have a lot of work to do and little time to do it. But this House Republican majority can and will deliver. Why? Because failure is not an option. Our leadership team will continue engaging in a bottom-up process on reconciliation to ensure that each and every member's voice is heard and no one's vote is taken for granted. We understand that the American people expect us to work quickly, which is why Speaker Johnson has set an aggressive timeline for passing a budget resolution by the end of February. This will unlock the opportunity for committees to begin drafting legislation, and that's where the real work will begin. In the words of the greatest hockey coach, I would say probably one of the greatest coaches of all time, Herb Brooks, this is our time, this is our moment, and the American people can rest assured that we're going to go out there and we are going to take it. Lastly, I want to address the first ridiculous media hoax of 2025. The Office of Management and Budget's review of certain spending priorities should be seen for what it is: good governance. There have been a lot of outright lies from members of the media and desperate Democrat politicians on this issue, including from the governor of my home state of Minnesota. But while pathological liar Tim Walz grasps for headlines and reels from his humiliating loss in the election, President Trump is delivering on his promise to ensure your tax dollars are being spent effectively. To be clear, OMB's guidance focuses solely on programs directly impacted by President Trump's executive orders. This includes funding for things like NGOs which facilitate illegal immigration, and it specifically excluded programs that provide direct funding to individuals like Social Security and Medicare. I, for one, am glad to have a president in the White House who is delivering on his promise to get our fiscal house in order as we stare down $36 trillion in debt, and who is also committed to undoing the damage Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did to our country over the last 4 years. And with that, I turn it over to Steve Scalise. Thank you, Monica. Yesterday, President Trump hosted his first official White House visit with a foreign leader in his second term. And I can't think of a more fitting guest than Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The message heard around the world from Washington was clear. Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East, and our support for Israel will not waver. Not now, not ever. Not only has President Trump promised to help bring the war in Israel to an end and the remaining hostages home, but he will also help secure peace for innocent civilians in Gaza. That is the kind of leadership our allies need and deserve after the Biden administration's foreign policy failures over the last 4 years. The president's meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu also comes on the heels of investigations launched by the Department of Education into 5 universities that enabled anti-Semitism to run rampant on their campuses after the Hamas horrific attack against Israel on October 7th. One of those colleges just happens to be the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus, which squad member Ilhan Omar visited earlier last year to champion the pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic protests happening across the country and to inspire more movements of hate. The far left's continued embrace of vicious attacks against the Jewish community has shown their true colors. There is no denying that today's Democrat Party is the pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic party. And now that we finally have a real leader in the White House, accountability is here. We've said this before, and we'll say it again. Anti-Semitism has no place in this country, not in our politics, not on our college campuses, not anywhere. Our House Republican majority, alongside President Trump and our Republican colleagues in the Senate, will fight every day to ensure that our ally Israel is supported. Jewish Americans remain protected, and anti-Semitism is eliminated once and for all. I want to thank President Trump for his leadership on this issue, and I know we're here on Capitol Hill. Those of us that are here on Capitol Hill are also looking forward to watching Prime Minister Netanyahu tomorrow. The time to reassert American leadership on the world stage and stand with our allies is now. With that, I turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip.
Thanks, Abe. $20 million for a Sesame Street show in Iraq. $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. The list of absurdities bankrolled by hardworking U.S. taxpayers goes on and on. But no more. President Donald Trump is delivering on his promise to shake up the status quo in Washington by ensuring the federal government is accountable to the American people who actually fund it. Through DOGE, millions of wasted and mismanaged taxpayer dollars have already been exposed, and countless inefficient and unnecessary government positions have been identified. And they're only just beginning. What they've uncovered so far is shocking. And this is, again, only the beginning. As DOGE continues to root out waste, fraud, and abuse within our federal government, our House Republican majority stands ready to ensure that our laws follow through on the mandate given to us in November to do the same. Meanwhile, Democrats in Congress are threatening to shut down the government over policies they simply do not like. One senator even claimed the accounting of the federal government's spending abroad is a constitutional crisis. This is delusional. The Democrat Party's tantrums are exactly why they hold no majority in Congress and their candidate is not in the White House. DOGE is rightly pulling back the curtains that have been closed for years, and the outrage we are seeing across the aisle is baffling but not surprising, given their record of mismanagement of taxpayer dollars. Americans see DOGE for what it is, a promise made and a promise kept. That's why President Trump's approval rating during his first 3 weeks in office have surpassed all expectations. The golden age of America is here, and we're just getting started. With that, our leader, Steve Scalise.
Thanks for 5 minutes.
Thank you to you, Chairman Stile, and to Chairman Hill for your tremendous leadership and partnership on digital asset legislation. I am honored to serve as the vice chairman of this subcommittee, and I'm humbled by the great work already done by your subcommittee. Under President Trump, promises made are promises kept, and a new day for crypto innovation, opportunity, and excellence has finally arrived. Crypto technology shifts economic power from centralized institutions back into the hands of the people. It's transformational. The wrong leadership, our past administration, feared this transformation. They did everything they could to kill it.
The right leadership, the Trump administration, welcomes this transformation and will do everything in their power to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. For this reason, we are in a moment to drive real change, to legally anchor the digital asset community, to unlock a peer-to-peer internet with an abundance of opportunity, to be globally competitive with our regulations, to expand the status of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, and to foster in the golden age of America. Doing this requires leading with two priorities. First, we must ensure crypto policy remains nonpartisan. Republicans and Democrats have a 10-year history of working productively together on solutions in this space. That kind of teamwork must remain the status quo. Second, we must craft statutory regulations that honor the core American values that are enshrined in digital asset technology: privacy, individual sovereignty, and free market competitiveness. I'm encouraged by the strong, nonpartisan coalition of members on this subcommittee and this full committee who have put up American values at the forefront of crypto policymaking. This Congress, I look forward to supporting this subcommittee as its vice chair in drafting and passing stablecoin legislation and market structure legislation. I also look forward to passing the CBDC Anti-Surveillance State Act, which bans the government from ever creating a central bank digital currency, and the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act, which gives entrepreneurs the legal clarity they need to innovate right here in the U.S., and the Securities Clarity Act, which codifies in law that a token is separate and distinct from an investment contract. This committee has long been at the forefront of innovative policymaking for the digital asset ecosystem. In this Congress, I'm excited to see the legislative products of our labor pass and get signed into law. Thank you again, Chairman Stile, Chairman Hill, and my colleagues across the aisle for your longstanding partnership in good faith to unlock an abundance of economic opportunity for our constituents. We have a lot of work ahead, but our constituents can trust that a great bipartisan team here in Congress will bring this across the finish line and deliver for the American people. Again, I'm honored to serve as your vice chairman, Mr. Stile, and I yield back the balance of my time.
We're honored to have you as our vice chair. We look forward to your participation. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman.
On November 5th, 77 million Americans gave Donald Trump a mandate to deliver on our America First agenda. Americans voted to secure our borders, unleash American energy, grow the U.S. economy, and bolster our great military, and prevent the largest tax hike in American history. They voted to make America great again by reversing the damage Joe Biden and Kamala Harris did to our country over the last 4 years. And House Republicans have put forward a budget that establishes a clear path to do just that. Now is the time to act and get a budget over to the Senate. And it's important to remember that our budget resolution merely unlocks the opportunity for committees to begin drafting legislation. That is where the real work is going to begin. So I'd caution the media against echoing Democrats' hysteria on where savings will come from. Our budget resolution is a blueprint to save America and rein in reckless and wasteful spending while delivering on President Trump's campaign promises. We have been given a historic opportunity with a Trump trifecta, and every member of our conference plays an important role in ensuring that we get it done. This is our moment. Now it's time to go out there and do it. And I turn it over to our majority leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip.
Thanks, Gabe. Tonight, President Trump will address Congress and the American people to highlight his historic actions and bold vision to renew the American dream. I have no doubt it's going to be big. The president's first 43 days in office can be summed up in 4 words: promises made, promises kept. From bringing back American manufacturing with over $1.7 trillion in new investments, to saving taxpayers billions by rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, to reestablishing peace through strength and America's position on the world stage, to paving the way for our country to achieve energy independence once again, and ending the crisis at our southern border, resulting in the lowest border numbers in history and even driving reverse immigration. reverse migration. President Trump has delivered countless victories to celebrate tonight. And if it's a preview of what's to come, which I believe it is, America has a great 4 years to look forward to as President Trump renews the American dream and unlocks our country's golden age. Now, before I go, I want to say that I'm also looking forward to welcoming my guests for the joint address tonight in the Capitol. Minnesota House Speaker Lisa Demuth is going to join us, and hockey legends, gold medalists from 1980, Buzz Schneider and Rob McClanahan. These three certainly represent the best of Minnesota and the American spirit. And with that, I turn it over to our leader.
Thanks, Andy. Last week, we celebrated President Trump's countless victories for the American people during his joint address to Congress. This week, Congress must pass a continuing resolution so the American people can continue to enjoy win after win after win. This is the way forward. But unfortunately, Democrats in Congress would rather throw temper tantrums fueled by their hatred for President Trump than keep the government open and working for all Americans. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries came out against our CR, as our conference chair mentioned, before the text was even released. And now, the only way to defend his nonsensical position is to fearmonger and spread outright lies about the bill's contents. Jeffries says our CR cuts nutritional assistance and veterans benefits. In fact, our CR increases spending in those areas. He also said it does nothing to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. In fact, our CR does protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And it does all of this while keeping overall spending below current levels. His lies are shameful. Congressional Democrats have made it clear where they stand, and it is not with the American people. Remember, a vote against our CR is a vote to shut down the government and strip resources from service members, veterans, vulnerable children, the elderly, and many, many more Americans. But don't just take my word for it. It's the same message Democrats have preached for years. Today, House Republicans will pass a responsible CR to keep the government open and to ensure American communities are taken care of. Will any Democrats join us, or will they continue to put their hypocrisy on full display? We're going to see. With that, I turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
The Surveillance Act. He's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for those words and for holding this important hearing today to study the promises of stablecoin technology to unlock economic efficiencies and the risks of central bank digital currencies to our privacy and freedom. I appreciate the committee's efforts to incorporate my feedback into the stablecoin bill over the past several Congresses, and I'm grateful to this committee for noticing my bill, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, in this hearing today. The bill's simple. It halts the efforts of unelected bureaucrats from ever issuing a central bank digital currency that could upend the American way of life. This bill has the support of over 100 members of Congress and groups ranging from the Independent Community Bankers Association and the American Bankers Association to Club for Growth, Heritage Action, and the Blockchain Association. CBDC technology is inherently un-American, and I'm grateful to President Trump for understanding this and signing an executive order banning CBDCs as one of his first actions as president. My bill would codify the executive order into law and prevent a future administration from creating such an obvious tool for financial surveillance against its own citizens. Chad, great to see you, Mr. Cascarilla. Proponents of the United States central bank digital currency often cite global competition in the race to extend the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency as promises of a CBDC. Do you think there's anything a potential United States CBDC could accomplish that a privately issued stable coin could not?
Thank you for the question, Congressman Emmer. I don't think so. I think historically innovation in the United States in both technology and in the financial services landscape has come from the private sector, and I think that is what we should continue to embrace, and I think that's what the bill would enable.
Well, speaking of stablecoins, Section 15 of the Stable Act requires, the proposed legislation requires federal regulators to create and implement reciprocal agreements between the United States and jurisdictions with substantially similar regulatory frameworks for dollar-backed payment stablecoins. Can you explain the impact this section will have in extending the status of the dollar as the world's reserve currency?
Thank you. Yes, I think the important point is that everybody wants a dollar. The U.S. is, of course, the home of the dollar. When we're exporting dollars, we're exporting American values. We want to make sure we have the same set of rules in the U.S. as we have around the world, so that there isn't some arbitrage that's possible to issue from another jurisdiction. And by having that same set of rules that everyone has to meet in order to access the U.S. market, it will actually create a race to the top, not a race to the bottom.
Thank you, Mr. Cascarilla. CBDCs introduce significant privacy risks and are fundamentally the antithesis of American values. On the other hand, this stablecoin bill can bring traditional finance on-chain at a global scale while preserving privacy, individual sovereignty, and free market competitiveness. This underscores why we must prioritize pro-stablecoin legislation alongside anti-CBDC legislation. I want to thank Chairman Hill again, and especially for working with me on the anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, both in this Congress now and in the last Congress. And I'd like to applaud the efforts of Representative Warren Davidson, Representative Andy Ogles, and former representative and a good friend of the chair and myself, Representative Alex Mooney, for their contributions to this text and for helping make it a stronger legislative proposal. I yield back the rest of my time.
Thanks, Pat. For 4 years, the Biden administration allowed millions of illegal aliens into the United States, including the murderers of Laken Riley, of Jocelyn and Gary, and Kayla Hamilton. Only 12 days ago, a Georgia mother of 5 was brutally murdered by a monster who was caught and released by the Biden administration in 2021. The need to get dangerous illegal aliens out of our communities is urgent. Under the Biden administration, our nation's adversaries became emboldened by the weak and incompetent leadership displayed in the Oval Office. The mission to restore America's military dominance and strength on the world stage has never been more urgent. Since 2017, Americans have enjoyed historic tax cuts implemented during President Trump's first term, which grew real wages by nearly 5%. The call to keep those cuts in place and prevent a tax hike of historic proportions is also urgent. The mandate to enact President Donald Trump's agenda is even more urgent. In November, 77 million Americans had a fire underneath them when they went to the polls and voted for real change. Now Congress ought to light our own match and get moving. Dragging our feet on reconciliation is not an option. Failure is not an option. And for border security, not for national security, and not for the prosperity of everyday Americans. The Republican trifecta must continue to move in lockstep with urgency for the American people, as we've already done in historic ways. The work ahead will not be easy, but we will get it done, and we will deliver on our America First agenda. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Whip.
How about that Alex Ovechkin? Oh, wrong group. Sorry. President Trump's multi-pronged economic strategy to renew the American dream demands congressional action. The stakes are high. House Republicans must work in tandem with President Trump to deliver the agenda that 77 million Americans sent here to enact. This includes renewing President Trump's successful tax policy in order to give Americans the financial certainty and prosperity they deserve. In addition to the administration's historic actions to secure nearly $5 trillion in investments and trade commitments and a massive deregulation campaign. House Republicans must also ensure the continuance of the 2017 Trump tax cuts through reconciliation. We're excited, by the way, to host U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent later today for a roundtable to address the importance and urgency of getting this done. Remember, the Senate version of the budget resolution does not prevent the House from achieving the goals we set for ourselves earlier in this process. In fact, it doesn't mean a thing to the House. We will continue to advocate for the final reconciliation bill to include historic spending reductions while protecting essential programs. But we must act now to bring the process to moving the America First agenda on track. The American people are hungry for economic prosperity. They were denied for 4 long years under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Together, the Republican trifecta can deliver that prosperity and return hope of financial freedom to every American. The work ahead will not be easy, but we will get it done. Failure in Congress could mean failing President Trump and the American people, and that is not an option. With that, I turn it over to our leader, Mr. Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. This is a really...
Crypto's footing slips on the hill, some reports read this morning. As a member of the most pro-crypto Congress ever, I wholeheartedly reject that premise. I want to remind everyone listening that crypto is not right or left. It's not Republican or Democrat. It's the future, and it's for everyone. In an increasingly digital world, America must step up as the leader in digital asset innovation and investment. President Trump vowed to make America the crypto capital of the world. And since day one, he's delivered by reversing Joe Biden and Gary Gensler's anti-crypto crusade. From signing a bill into law that repeals the Biden-era IRS rule that chilled DeFi innovation, to signing executive orders that create a strategic reserve of crypto and prohibit the establishment of a central bank digital currency. President Trump is positioning the United States as the world leader in digital assets. These are moves that can and should be celebrated by all of us. As the most pro-crypto, pro-innovation Congress ever elected, we are already taking bipartisan steps, I would argue nonpartisan steps, to ensure digital asset policy champions decentralization and open, permissionless, and private innovation. This is the only viable path forward. By originating the regulatory framework for crypto here in Congress, the future of digital assets will be determined by the American people and their representatives, as it should be. The moment to get this done is now, and we need to get it done together. If we fail to provide clarity that protects innovators and consumers alike, the future of crypto and the opportunities it brings will belong to another nation. To deliver on President Trump's crypto promises that individuals in both parties can get behind, Congress must keep taking steps closer to getting a nonpartisan, or you guys like to report bipartisan, regulatory framework across the finish line, and quickly. With that, I turn it over to our leader Scalise.
Thanks, Jason. This week, House Republicans face a historic moment that has the potential to revive the American dream and solidify the comeback that has already begun under President Donald J. Trump. From our nation's farmers to police officers working 60 hours a week, from America's top manufacturers to small businesses on Main Street, our one big, beautiful bill holds promise for every American. In fact, nearly 1,000 organizations have already expressed support for the policies within the bill. The Job Creators Network described our reconciliation bill as, quote, exactly what the country needs to jumpstart the economy and guarantee the safety and prosperity of Americans for decades to come, end quote. The National Association of Manufacturers said of this landmark legislation, quote, we need certainty now, and this is the moment to deliver one big, beautiful bill that lets us compete and win, end quote. Their warning could not be more true. The time to get this done is now. Not only does this legislation make the 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent and implement no tax on tips and overtime pay, it also unleashes American energy, cuts waste, fraud, and abuse, and allows President Trump to continue his successful deportation and border security operations. And that's only naming a handful of things this bill accomplishes. Our reconciliation bill delivers on President Trump's America First agenda, and it does so while saving the American people over $1.6 trillion. The one big, beautiful bill is truly a once-in-a-generation chance to get America back on track. House Republicans must seize this opportunity, and quickly. As my good friend Jason Smith just said, failure is not an option. With that, I turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
Great job, Jim. Over the weekend in New York City, an off-duty Customs and Border Protection officer was shot in the face during an attempted robbery by two illegal aliens. These two criminals were allowed into our country by the Biden administration, where they both have gone on to commit multiple crimes. Assault, kidnapping, larceny, and now attempted murder make up their rap sheet. Senseless, dangerous sanctuary policies put these criminals back on the streets after their numerous arrests, enabling them to wreak havoc on innocent Americans. The damage done by the Biden administration's deliberate open border policies cannot be understated. We are still feeling the consequences of it today. But President Trump, DH Secretary Noem, and Border Czar Tom Homan are turning the tide. In my state of Minnesota, ICE arrests of illegal aliens have doubled since President Trump took office. And while the local worthless media in my home state tries to spin that as a bad thing, the brave men and women of ICE are getting the worst of the worst illegal aliens off the streets of Minnesota and America, restoring safety and security to our communities. As these officers enforce the laws, they face an 830% increase in assaults. To the ICE agents risking their lives to keep us all safe, thank you. To the Border Patrol agents and custom officers securing our border, thank you. The One Big Beautiful Bill supports their efforts by giving them the tools they need to continue this critical work, including more ICE officers, more Border Patrol agents, more border wall, and more detention space. These resources strengthen and make permanent the great success that President Trump has already had securing the border and deporting criminal illegal aliens. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers historic border security wins. It delivers historic border security wins, and we're all safer for it. With that, the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Whip. Well, it's been a very...
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Tony, and thanks to all your colleagues who came today. Last week, the world watched in horror as a political assassination was carried out against a champion of free speech, Charlie Kirk. As Lisa said when we started, our prayers continue to be with his wife, Erica, and their two young children as they endure this unimaginable loss. In response to Charlie's death, tens of thousands have gathered for vigils to mourn, pray, and remember. These vigils organically sprung up across the world, not fueled by hate, vitriol, or revenge, but by unity, love, and hope. I want you to see the contrast between this response to tragedy and responses we have seen in the past. For instance, in my state, in 2020, Minneapolis was burned by rioters while Tim Walz's wife kept the windows of the governor's mansion open to, quote, smell the burning tires. While radical leftists react with chaos and destruction, may we continue to respond with prayer, community, and effective policy. Policy that promotes law and order in a time when Democrats seem to be set on promoting crime and chaos. Since day one, President Trump has made it clear that safety and security are possible if leaders have the will to do it. The president's decisive action in the District of Columbia has resulted in over 2,400 arrests and over 200 illegal firearms seized. Thanks to his efforts, our nation's capital is now safe
for residents and visitors alike. This week, House Republicans are going to take action to solidify the president's crime crackdown here in the district with legislation that ensures criminals are kept off the streets and that their crimes receive appropriate sentences. With these bills, Republicans are empowering the city's law enforcement officers, fighting back against rampant juvenile crime, and making the district courts accountable again. The American people are fed up with the out-of-control crime, and our capital city should serve as a blueprint for law and order across the country. By setting the example here, President Trump and House Republicans are delivering on the promise to make America safe again. With that, the leader of this, our majority leader,
Tom Emmer.
A government shutdown serves no one. Government shutdowns unleash chaos on federal workers, delay pay for service members, and weaken our position on the global stage. To hold these people hostage instead of just letting them do their jobs is so wrong. These aren't my words. These are the words of congressional Democrats over the last 6 years. I hope that they will listen to their own advice for once. Let's be clear about how we got here. Republicans did our job. We did the right and reasonable thing by passing a nonpartisan, clean CR to keep the government open while we worked to return the appropriation process to regular order. The reason the government is shut down this morning is because the Democrats decided they would rather hold our government hostage and issue a $1.5 trillion ransom note of radical demands and then instead of joining us as we try to govern. Make no mistake, their top priority is not fighting for Americans' health care. Their top priority is picking a fight with President Trump and scoring political points with their far-left base in the process. The American people aren't fools, however, and they won't be used as pawns in this ridiculous game. To my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, it's not too late. You can still do the responsible thing by passing our clean CR in the Senate and sending it to President Trump's desk immediately. The time for staged photo ops, selfies, and scripted talking points is over. The time for deliberate action is now. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Cotton, our honorary Minnesotan. Our men and women in uniform, veterans, air traffic controllers, farmers and ranchers, federal workers and their families, Americans who rely on telehealth and home care services. These are just a few of the victims of the Chuck Schumer Democrat shutdown. All because Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries care more about appeasing the radical members of their party than working in good faith to keep the government open. They are trying valiantly to claim that they are doing it to fight for Americans' health care. But their $1.5 trillion wish list, which slashes funding for rural health care, as you've heard from both the Speaker and the Majority Leader, while giving taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens, tells a much different story. The American people see their political charade for what it is. The good news is Democrats still have time to do the right and reasonable thing. Because Republicans have done our job, there is a clean, nonpartisan continuing resolution ready in the Senate to send to President Trump's desk right now. The question is, how long? How long will Democrats hold the American people hostage to play their political games? I hope they come to their senses soon. Until then, we're going to force them to go on the record about their self-inflicted shutdown every single day. And the consequences will be theirs to own, and only theirs. With that, I'll turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain. 8 days. We are now 8 days into the Democrats' shutdown. 8 days that our troops are not getting paid. Border Patrol agents are going without mission-critical funding. Federal workers are being forced to figure out how they're going to put food on the table for their families. All because Democrats would rather hold the American people hostage to appease their radical base than to pass our clean, nonpartisan government funding bill. As of this morning, Senate Democrats have had 5 opportunities to get the government up and running again for the people they were elected to serve. And the vast majority of them have voted no every single time. Their obstruction is not only a slap in the face to hardworking Americans whose livelihoods are being put at risk due to the Democrats' shutdown, it's also a slap in the face to the constituents who fund their salaries with the expectation that they fulfill their basic constitutional responsibilities. In my hand, I have more than a dozen pages of organizations from across the country representing Americans from every end of the political spectrum, echoing the exact same message. And that message is that government shutdowns solves nothing and hurts everyone. So to our Democrat colleagues in the Senate, enough with the political grandstanding. Do the right and responsible thing by passing the House's clean CR immediately. Americans are already hurting. People's jobs are at stake. You can and must end the political games and reopen the government today. And with that, I turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain. Yesterday, Senate Democrats, including the 2 senators from my home state of Minnesota, Tina Smith and Amy Klobuchar, voted for a 6th time, as the Speaker mentioned, to shut the government down or keep it shut down. 6 times. That's 6 times that Senate Democrats have voted against, as Leader Scalise was just talking about, paying our troops. 6 times that they voted against the 13,000 Minnesota National Guardsmen who are showing up to work without receiving a paycheck. 6 times that they voted against supporting federal workers, air traffic controllers, border patrol agents, and the list goes on and on. And why? Because Democrats have decided they'd rather hold the American people hostage than pass the same nonpartisan clean CR that they supported just 6 months ago and that they passed 13 times under the Biden administration. Tina Smith claims she shut the government down so that she can, quote, protect Minnesotans' health care, unquote. But Tina, if that really was the case, why do you support a $1.5 trillion spending proposal that would give health care to illegal aliens while cutting $50 billion from rural health care? She's just not being honest. This was never about health care for the Democrats. This has been about picking a fight with President Trump so that they can try to score points with the terrorist wing of their party. It's pure politics, and nothing reveals their true motivations more than Chuck Schumer taking a victory lap, as both the Speaker and the leader have said, saying every day this gets better for us. So every day that our troops, TSA agents, and air traffic controllers work without pay is a better day than the last? That's disgusting. And every single person in this room should be holding Chuck Schumer accountable for his words. Unfortunately, Minnesota's 2 senators continue to follow Chuck Schumer off the end of the political pier with their needless shutdown. Earlier this week, our entire Minnesota Republican congressional delegation sent a letter to Senators Smith and Klobuchar urging that they please do the right and responsible thing by passing the House's nonpartisan clean CR and end the massive amount of pain that they're inflicting on Minnesotans and the American people. Our message today is still the same, and it's not going to change. All of us are united. It is enough with the games. Pass our CR, get the government up and running again for Minnesotans. And I say this to my 2 senators
the people that elected you to do your job. Do your job. Your constituents deserve better than this. And with that, I turn it over to our conference chair.
Emmer.
I'm going to go back to Chuck's words again. Quote, every day gets better for us. You reopen the government and we lose our leverage. The point of this shutdown is not just suffering for suffering's sake, but to make a point. These are actual quotes from Chuck Schumer and Senate Democrats over the last week. You don't have to take our word for what their motivations are in shutting down the government. They are spelling it out for you and all of us. This is about one thing and one thing only: to score political points with the terrorist wing of their party, which is set to hold, as Leader Scalise just commented on, a Hate America rally in D.C. next week. And they've forced military families, air traffic controllers, border patrol agents, farmers, veterans, TSA agents, and federal workers to pay the price. We're now on day 10 of the Democrat shutdown. Senate Democrats, including Senator Tina Smith in my home state of Minnesota, have had 7 opportunities to reopen the government, but they've refused every single time. Consequently, Americans across the country are experiencing flight delays. In a matter of mere days, 11,000 Minnesota National Guardsmen won't get paid. Federal workers are being forced to figure out how they're going to put food on the table for their families, just so the Democrats can maintain their leverage to make a point. It's despicable, it's disgusting, and it should be disqualifying. With election season right around the corner, I hope every single American is taking note. Republicans have done our job. Democrats, on the other hand, are only here to play politics, and they're willing to hang their constituents out to dry to do it. And with that, I'll turn it back to our speaker.
A question for Whip Emmer. Mr. Emmer, I know the White House announced last week that they were going to rescind $7.5 billion in green energy funds. They went to a number of states. It includes your district, however. Excel Energy Services is on the line to lose $7 million if this funding is rescinded. What conversations have you had with the White House about this, and what is your expectation for this funding? Is it truly gone, or is there some way to get it back?
Well, this is going to affect the speaker, this is going to affect the leader, this is going to affect our chairman, Representative Stile, and all of our members. Literally, this could end today. If Chuck Schumer and Democrats would reopen the government, this wouldn't be an issue. And what's happened is the White House has to make some very serious and difficult decisions as to what's essential and what's not. If you want to end it, Chuck Schumer, reopen the government.
So, sir, your understanding is the White House will continue with that funding when the government reopens?
I would suggest that you call Tina Smith and ask her why she wants to keep the government shut down and put all this at risk.
With that, let's bring up our whip.
As the speaker noted, today should be a day of celebration. President Trump achieved a historic peace deal in the Middle East. The last living hostages held in captivity by Hamas have been returned with their families, reunited with their families. Yet, we're all here today marking day 14 of the Democrat shutdown. And to make matters even worse, if the Democrats had things their way, this would also mark the first week that our troops would not receive their paychecks. But thanks to the leadership of our Commander-in-Chief, President Trump, members of the military and their families will not be used as pawns in Chuck Schumer's shutdown game. Come tomorrow, our troops will get paid. But the consequences of the Democrat shutdown are real. And unfortunately, they're only just getting started. OMB has already been forced to lay off its first round of federal workers. It doesn't have to be this way. Chuck Schumer, if you open the government today, this would end. If the Democrat shutdown continues, though, more Americans won't see a paycheck at the end of this month. Benefits like SNAP will be put at risk,
Airports will be flooded with flight cancellations and delays amid the busiest time to travel all year. And the list goes on and on. Why? Because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats would rather cater to the pro-terrorist wing of their party than to reopen our government. We've said it from this podium, it feels like 1,000,000 times, and we'll say it again. Republicans have done our job. We have a nonpartisan clean CR ready in the Senate to be sent to President Trump's desk immediately, tonight, if they will pass it. We only need 5 Senate Democrats to break ranks with Chuck Schumer, vote for the same CR that they supported just 6 months ago, and reopen the government for the people they were elected to serve. But they have refused to do so 7 times and counting. And each time that they do, hardworking Americans are forced to pay the price. Our message to Senate Democrats today is the same message we've been saying since September 19th. Stop the political games, pass our clean CR, and reopen the government today. With that, I turn it over to our conference chair.
And the whip of our conference is my friend, Tom Emmer.
If Chuck Schumer and the Democrats had things their way, more than 1 million service members would not get paid today. Thankfully, our commander-in-chief stepped up where the Democrats have refused by reallocating funds to ensure our troops receive their hard-earned paychecks today. Thanks to President Trump, military families across the country will have the resources they need to continue making ends meet just a little bit longer. Yet, what has been the Democrats' response? Representative Madeleine Dean told CNN yesterday, quote, "This is not the way to run a government," close quote. Making sure our troops get paid is not the way to run a government? You know what is actually not the way to run a government, Representative Dean? Holding the American people hostage over your $1.5 trillion wish list of radical demands. Clearly, the Democrat Party of today is not your grandfather's Democrat Party. They care about one thing and one thing only, appeasing the radical, pro-terrorist wing of their party. And they will inflict the maximum amount of pain on the American people to do it. But it doesn't have to be this way. Republicans have a nonpartisan government funding bill ready in the Senate. We've been talking about it now for more than 2 weeks. It can be sent to President Trump's desk immediately. We could end the Democrats' shutdown chaos today if they would do the right and reasonable thing by passing our clean CR. It contains 0 partisan policy riders, no gimmicks. It's the same spending levels that Democrats supported just 6 months ago and that they passed 13 times previously under the Biden administration. But 9 times now, 9 times, the Democrats have refused, shutting the government down in the process and forcing Americans to pay the price. All so they can gallivant around the Capitol making ridiculous videos, childish videos, scream at Capitol police officers who aren't getting paid, by the way, and buy time until their Hate America rally takes place on Saturday on the Mall. It's despicable and it's wrong. We can only hope that they come to their senses and that the madness ends soon. Until then, our message remains the same. Stop playing political games, pass our clean CR, and reopen the government for the people you were elected to serve.
Bring up our whip, Tom Emmer.
As the Speaker said, we're now on day 20 of the Democrats' shutdown. For everyone tuning in, here's a quick review of everything that's happened in the last 3 weeks. Republicans did our jobs. We passed a clean, nonpartisan government funding bill that Democrats supported just 6 months ago and passed 13 times under the Biden administration. 11 times now, Democrats have refused to pass our clean CR, shutting the government down in the process and forcing Americans to pay the price. In order to simply turn the lights back on, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have demanded $1.5 trillion in new spending for things like taxpayer-funded health care for illegals, and cutting $50 billion from our rural health care fund. They've taken the American people hostage while pointing fingers at us for refusing to concede to their absurd wish list of demands. But Republicans have been clear. We will not negotiate under hostage conditions, nor will we pay a ransom. The Democrats' position is totally unreasonable. It's hypocritical. And it's pure partisan politics in a desperate attempt to score points with the radical, pro-terrorist wing of their party. Now that their Hate America rally is over, I hope that at least 5 Senate Democrats will finally do the right and responsible thing by breaking ranks with Chuck Schumer, passing our clean CR, and reopening the government. If they continue to refuse, we're going to continue to hold them to account. And I hope members of the media in this room are going to do the same. Welcome to day 21 of the Democrats' shutdown, where Democrats have now voted 12 times against funding our government. Why is that? I'm going to read the same quotes from those anonymous Democrats. People are going to get hammered if they vote for the House-passed bill. A second person familiar with the political dynamics said centrist senators are fearful of breaking with leaders while party activists are planning the anti-Trump rallies. Another one, we would have enough votes to reopen the government if people were not terrified, as Steve and both Mike have pointed out, of getting the guillotine. Another Democrat strategist said the main driver is fundraising, which Steve just went over. Do I vote to open the government up and get crushed and can't raise a single dollar of low-dollar money? I mean, it's amazing, Steve. This is what it's all about. And this is what everybody in this room should be reporting every single day. They should be held accountable for this type of behavior because it is having serious consequences all across the country. Real Americans are getting hurt while these political elites in the defunct Democrat Party are playing political games. Border Patrol agents are being forced to go without mission-critical funding. Low-income families, nutrition assistance benefits like SNAP and WIC are being jeopardized, all so these Democrats can appease their radical pro-terrorist wing. That is what they are. You saw it, and anybody who wants to push back, then they should disavow any connection to people who are calling for the death of any elected official, let alone the President of the United States, which they seem to be fine with, or this Attorney General candidate in Virginia. They won't even do that. This is a party without a message, without a leader, and without a future at this point. They are well on their way to being left on the ash heap of history. It's despicable, and it's downright wrong. We've got news for Chuck Schumer and the soon-to-be former leader of the Democrats in the House. Your Hate America rally is over. It's past time for you to stop thinking about yourselves and start thinking about the people that you were hired to serve. The American people are not and should not be pawns in your shutdown games, and they should not be forced to suffer just so you can play politics here in Washington, D.C. Put an end to this madness, pass our clean CR, and let's reopen this government immediately. Our conference chair.
Our whip, Tom Emmer.
Well, Democrats have voted 12 times to shut the government down. 12 times. And now they're refusing to support legislation that would help alleviate some of the pain they've inflicted on the American people as a result. Earlier this week, the minority leader in the House said he opposes legislation that would pay our troops and essential federal workers during the Democrat shutdown. This includes Border Patrol agents, air traffic controllers, TSA agents, and more. All of whom, by the way, as these speakers have pointed out, are showing up to work without receiving a paycheck while the Democrats play their shutdown games. Some would say the soon-to-be former House Democrat leader went so far as to call this legislation, quote, a political ploy. Well, I'll tell you what a political ploy is. Holding the American people hostage just so you can avoid getting the guillotine from your far left base. That's a political ploy. The good news is this madness can end immediately if 5 Senate Democrats would grow a spine, stand up to the radicals in their party, and pass our clean CR and reopen the government. It contains no partisan policy riders, no gimmicks. In fact, it's the same spending levels that Democrats supported just 6 months ago and that you've heard repeatedly they passed 13 times under the Biden administration. We have made this plain and simple. We have made the process as plain and simple as possible. To our Senate Democrat colleagues, it's not too late to do the right and reasonable thing. Pass our CR and reopen the government for the people that you are actually elected to serve. Let's get it done today. With that. Shutdowns are terrible. Of course, there will be families that are going to suffer. We take that responsibility seriously. But it is one of the few leverage times we have. You've heard that 3 times now. A direct quote from the #2 Democrat in the House, Katherine Clark. Meanwhile, in Massachusetts, which is Katherine Clark's home state, 45,000 federal workers are being forced to figure out how they're going to pay their bills next week. More than 1 million SNAP enrollees and 123,000 women, infant, and children who require nutritional assistance, they're going to be impacted, Catherine. Telehealth services and a home hospital program have been put on pause. Tens of thousands of travelers who come through Massachusetts airports are at risk of experiencing flight cancellations and delays, as you heard from the secretary this morning. Obviously, we can go on and on about the ways people in Whip Clark's home state and across the country are being forced to suffer because the Democrats refuse to reopen the government. But they don't care, because to them, suffering is leverage. To them, this is one big political game. It doesn't matter that millions of Americans are hurting because, as Chuck Schumer says, every day gets better for us. What a disgusting, despicable mentality to have. The truth of the matter is, Democrats could end their shutdown madness today if they would simply do their jobs. All they have to do is stop playing politics, pass our clean CR, and reopen the government for the people they were elected to serve. We're going to continue giving them opportunities to do the right and reasonable thing. The question is not whether they are able. The question is whether they are willing. I hope they come to their senses soon. But until then, we're going to hold them to account, and we expect everyone in this room to do the same. Lisa McClain.
Our whip, Tom Emmer.
We're now on day 27 of the Democrats' shutdown, and the consequences are getting more severe every single day. Over the weekend, we saw federal workers lined up at food banks, as our majority leader was just saying, as they are being forced to figure out how to feed their families. We saw control towers at major airports such as Dallas, Fort Worth, Newark, and Phoenix facing significant staffing shortages. And if the Democrats fail to pass our clean CR and reopen the government this week, more Americans will miss their hard-earned paychecks. Some states will be forced to cut off SNAP benefits, including my home state of Minnesota. Thankfully, the Trump administration and private sector companies have stepped up where Democrats have refused. President Trump has found creative solutions to help pay our troops and fund WIC benefits for moms and young children for just a little bit longer. DoorDash announced yesterday that they will help support Americans by delivering free meals to food banks and waiving delivery and service fees on grocery orders for SNAP recipients. But these are Band-Aid solutions to the Democrats' self-inflicted shutdown problem. Remember, It doesn't have to be this way. There is a nonpartisan government funding bill sitting in the Senate ready to be sent to President Trump's desk immediately. We just need 5 Senate Democrats to come to their senses, do the right and reasonable thing, and support our clean CR. Contrary to what House Minority Whip Catherine Clark believes, the American people are not leverage in the Democrats' shutdown charade. And we refuse to negotiate under hostage conditions, nor will we pay a ransom. So our message today is the same as every other day, and we're glad to see, as the Majority Leader mentioned, that the American Federation of Government Employees, by the way, the largest government employee union, 820,000 federal employees, have joined us in saying enough with the political games, support our clean CR, and reopen the government like your constituents' livelihoods depend on it, because they do. As has been mentioned, yesterday, the largest federal workers union in the country, they represent 820,000 federal workers, released a statement calling on Democrats to stop playing political games, pass our clean CR, and reopen the government. What was Chuck Schumer's response? Silence. Crickets. He declined to comment. Meanwhile, millions of federal workers are reevaluating how to make ends meet. Air traffic controllers missed their first full paycheck today. Some are turning to food banks, as we've discussed, in order to feed their families. Here is what one Democrat and retired federal worker had to say about the current state of play. Quote, "The Democrats are the ones that actually, in the Senate side, shut down the government. So they have to get together and stop holding Americans hostage. We're about to have people without food, and that's ridiculous. It's not worth it." Remember, that's coming from a Democrat and retired federal worker. Since Chuck Schumer and company won't listen to us, maybe they'll start listening to members of their own party. Enough is enough. You're playing politics with people's lives, and as Leader Scalise and the Speaker have reminded us, for what? So that you can appease the radical pro-terrorist wing of your party, so that you can fundraise off of picking a fight with President Trump. It's not worth it. In fact, it's despicable and downright wrong. There's a nonpartisan government funding bill waiting in the Senate to be sent to President Trump's desk immediately. It will come to the floor for a vote for the 13th time this morning. Put an end to the madness. Do the right and reasonable thing that you did back in March, by the way, and vote yes on our clean CR. Instead of complaining about a new White House ballroom, how about you try doing your actual job and reopen the government for the people you were elected to serve? Our conference chair.
Tom Emmer.
The Democrats have no leader, no vision, no message. And nothing proves it more than the chaos they have caused with their needless government shutdown. We are now 29 days into this mess, and the Democrats have contradicted themselves every turn with no exit strategy in sight. They've tried to make their shutdown fight about health care, while simultaneously demanding that we cut $50 billion in rural health care and give taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens. Not to mention the Americans who are suffering right now because critical health care services have been put on pause due to the Democrats' shutdown charade. On the issue of SNAP, Democrats are bending over backward to oppose Trump, using taxpayer dollars to fund frivolous lawsuits. Meanwhile, they are the ones causing people to lose their SNAP benefits by refusing to reopen the government. Remember, all of this could have been solved in a matter of 5 minutes by 5 Senate Democrats if they would do the reasonable and right thing by supporting our clean CR. The same CR that they supported just 6 months ago, and as we've said over and over, that they passed 13 times under the Biden administration. But instead, they'd rather run in circles, tripping over their own feet in the process and hanging their constituents out to dry. Why? In order to attain political leverage and score points with the radical Mamdani and Omar Fata supporting that, by the way, for those of you that don't know, is the Mamdani of the Midwest, Omar Fata, supporting that wing of their party. Take it from the party who essentially wrote the government shutdown playbook. It doesn't work. Shutdowns achieve nothing but hurt everyone. So enough with the political games. Pass our clean CR and let's reopen the government for the people that you were elected to serve. We are officially 30 days into the Democrats' needless government shutdown. 30 days that millions of federal workers have gone without a paycheck. 30 days that critical telehealth services and in-home hospital care programs have been put on pause for the vulnerable Americans who need it most. 30 days that our national security has been put at risk due to staffing shortages. Not to mention the SNAP benefits that you've heard our leader go through in detail that will be cut off for more than 40 million low-income Americans if the Democrats fail to reopen the government before Saturday. It's been 30 days of pure obstruction from Democrat lawmakers who care more about appeasing the radical Mamdani and Omar Fata wing of their party than reopening the government for the people they were elected to serve. Americans are hurting. Families are turning to food banks. Major airports are issuing ground stops. But the Democrats don't care. In fact, they've orchestrated this chaos by refusing to support our nonpartisan government funding bill 14 times now. And for what? So that they can kowtow to the people like Kami. And I will just say to my great friend and colleague, Claudia Tenney, socialists are now the moderates in my grandfather's Democrat Party. These are communists and Marxists. They are kowtowing to the people like Kami Mamdani ahead of the election. People are struggling in the meantime to put food on the table, and the Democrats are too busy playing politics to do anything about it. It's disgusting, and it needs to end. I say it every day when we do this. Remember, all we need is 5 Senate Democrats to come to their senses, break ranks with Chuck Schumer, support our clean CR, and reopen the government. It's past time for Democrats in Congress to get serious and do their jobs for the people they were elected to serve, not for the communist mayoral candidate in New York City, our conference chair.
Our whip, Tom Emmer.
Today marks day 34 of the Democrat shutdown. Here are some headlines from over the weekend highlighting the pain the Democrats are inflicting on the American people each day that they prolong this mess. Quote, government workers, SNAP recipients feel the pain as the government shutdown drags on. Quote, staffing shortages mire air travel as shutdown stretches on. Quote, government shutdown threatens to delay home heating aid for millions of low-income families. And that's just to name a few. Democrats have now voted against opening the government 14 times. That's 14 times that they voted against our military. That's 14 times that they have voted against federal law enforcement officers, air traffic controllers, and TSA agents. 14 times they have voted against low-income Americans who rely on programs like SNAP and WIC. Why? Not because they actually care about lowering the cost of health care like they claim. Just look at the 68-page counterproposal they filed in the Senate. Only 1.5 pages reference health care. The other 66 outline their radical policy priorities like billions of dollars of for foreign climate projects or $500 million to prop up leftist media outlets. The fact of the matter is that the Democratic Party is not fighting for you, the American public. They've shut the government down to pick a fight with President Trump and to score points with Kami Mamdani and Omar Fata, the Omar Fata wing of their party.
The Democrats have become kamikaze politicians who are so focused on winning some kind of political game that they've justified blowing up everything in their wake, including the livelihoods of their own constituents. Democrat Senator John Fetterman said it best on CNN yesterday, quote, "We are hurting the very people that we fight for, and now we're getting nothing for them if we continue to keep our government shut down." Quote, "This is wrong," he went on to say, and he's exactly right. It's past time for Democrats to end the political games, pass our clean CR, and reopen the government for the people they were elected to serve. Back to the Speaker. The Democrat government shutdown, spanning 35 days and still counting, is now tied for the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Chuck Schumer and company are going down in the history books for beating total obstructionists over a nonpartisan government funding bill. Meanwhile, it's hardworking Americans who are being forced to pay the price. Federal workers are turning to local food banks to feed their families. Head Start programs are beginning to close, as Chairman Walberg mentioned. Thousands of flights are getting delayed due to staffing shortages. Small businesses that contract with the federal government have already lost an estimated $12 billion. Even unions, as you've heard, which traditionally have favored our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, are begging for them to end their needless shutdown charade. The good news is, I think we've reached the real inflection point. Today is election day in several states, and we're hopeful that after today, the Democrats won't be as concerned about holding the line in order to appease the Kami Mamdani and Omar Fata wing of their party. And maybe, just maybe, at least 5 Senate Democrats will finally come to their senses and join us by passing our clean CR to reopen the government. The ball is in their court. Republicans have done our job. The question is, are Democrats willing to put politics aside long enough to do theirs? I hope the answer is yes, sooner rather than later. The American people deserve better. Chairwoman McLean.
Thank you. And thank you, Chairman Walberg and Secretary Chavez-Dreamer. It's good to see you again.
Democrats have officially set the record for the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. And each day that their needless shutdown drags on, the consequences get more and more severe. Yesterday, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said they might be forced to close certain parts of the airspace if the Democrat government shutdown continues into next week. Remember when one Democrat aide remarked that the party will not concede short of planes falling out of the sky? They weren't kidding. They are prepared to prolong the pain that they've inflicted on the American people because, as Chuck Schumer said, every day the government is shut down gets better for us. And as Catherine Clark and Chris Coons said, government shutdowns are one of the few leverage times they have. But while the Democrats have been busy playing politics with people's lives, President Trump has been hard at work delivering on the mandate 77 million Americans gave him 1 year ago today. In just 10 months, President Trump has delivered the largest middle tax cut in history. He brought illegal border crossings down to record lows after 4 years of the Biden border crisis. He ended 8 wars and made America respected again on the world stage. And he's just getting started. While President Trump has been hard at work delivering on the American First agenda for 77 million Americans, that's what they voted for, the Democrats have been hard at work obstructing that agenda and consequently the will of the people at every turn. The Democrat Party of today is not your grandfather's Democrat Party. Nothing proves it more than last night's election results. From a communist mayor in New York City to a Virginia attorney general who said he wanted to murder his political opponent, pro-terrorist Marxist radicals are now the left's mainstream. we will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about. That is a direct quote from Kami Mamdani, and it should terrify every single freedom-loving American. This is the land of insanity Chuck Schumer and company have enabled with their party's political games, and now they must own the consequences. And with that, our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Our whip, Tom Emmer.
It's day 37 of the Democrat government shutdown, and one thing has become clearer, more clear now than ever. The Democrat Party of today is not your grandparents' Democrat Party. They refuse to govern. They resort to hostage-taking when they don't get their way. They routinely put politics before people. And now they have made communists and assassination fantasizers the pillars of their party. Democrats claim they want to make life more affordable for hardworking Americans, but every time that they've had the majorities in Congress and a Democrat president in the White House, they've done the exact opposite. Take the American Rescue Plan under Joe Biden, for example, which was later deemed by economic experts as the, quote, original sin that led to double-digit inflation. Or look at the Affordable Care Act, which is so unaffordable, they have to pay people to use it. The Democrats have no moral high ground to stand on when it comes to good governance. They don't know what it is. And when they claim that they're fighting for you, do not believe them. Because if this shutdown has taught us anything, it's that the Democrats will willingly inflict pain on the American people if they think it gives them political leverage. Their kamikaze politicians and their constituents deserve better. In stark contrast, however, Republicans have done our jobs. We passed a nonpartisan government funding bill out of the House over a month ago. All we need, as the Speaker said earlier, is just 5 Democrats in the Senate to grow a spine, stand up to the radicals in their party, and join us in getting our clean CR to the president's desk. Enough is enough. It's past time for Democrats to end the political games and reopen the government for the people they were elected to serve. Our conference chair.